Welcome to Art Blender, the internet talk show where we interview creative artists from all walks of life and from all around the world. Hi, I'm Sharon Lee and I am your host. In today's show, we are interviewing Maurine Killough, a San Francisco Bay Area poet and businesswoman. We will find out why Maurine started writing when she began menopause, how she used poetry as a personal healing tool, and she discusses how the 2017 fire in Sonoma changed her life. Alrighty, let's go to the show. Welcome to Sharon's Poetry Corner podcast. I am delighted to welcome Maurine Killough, a local poet and businesswoman. And good morning, Maurine. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Sharon. This is such an honor.
It's wonderful to have you here. I'm very excited. Okay, so we are going to be talking poetry today, and different styles of poetry, what poetry means to us, and also poetry as a healing tool, and how poetry can really help us through whatever we're going through in our lives, you know. So when would you say that you first started knowing that you had the ability to put words on a page, and not in a school sense, but in a self-expression sense?
Well, I mean, I've always written little poems my whole life here and there, but never consistently. It was very random. But I really started to get on fire and, like a bolt of lightning, started writing very prolifically right when I hit menopause. So it was kind of an interesting thing to have happen, but the muse really hit me. And so I have published a book and started a poetry blog, and really have been using the poetry. And I don't think I thought about it this way at the time, Sharon, but it's neat that you bring this up. But I think intuitively I was using the poetry for healing.
Yes. I think we don't necessarily know it at the time, but it's a very cathartic, I think, as we've talked about. I am a breast cancer survivor. I had breast cancer in 2012, and my husband died in 2014 of a rare cancer. And so writing poetry, I wrote poetry when I was younger, but it has truly taken on a whole nother form at this stage in my life. And I consider it's truly been one of my saviors in helping me through these difficult times. And I know that I'm going to jump a little bit further here because I know that you've written a poem about something very difficult that you've been through in your own life. And I was wondering if you could explain to me a little bit about what that difficult time was. And if I know we spoke about the poem, and I would love to have you read it here for our audience.
Great. Well, so I did write a poem about the California fires in 2017 that is sadly kind of repeating itself again now in 2019. We had a beautiful property up in Sonoma. It was our baby. It was like our retreat place, and it burned down to the ground. And we truly weren't expecting it. Of course, no one does. And it was really a huge loss for us. So I wrote a poem because I was inspired about this concept. This is a Sanskrit word called aparigraha, which means non-grasping and non-greediness. So aparigraha essentially is the kind of the energetic or even spiritual concept of releasing and letting go. And so I did end up writing a poem called Aparigraha, and I'm happy to read it for you now.
Yes, and I will read along with you as you're reading it. Yes.
Thank you. Aparigraha. Shiva came through this place, smoke signals foretold, destroyer, wiper of slates. Destroyer, you hit your mark, smeared your body with our ashes, crumbled our city of material dreams, security illusions. That which you have reduced to settled piles disintegrates my grasp of worldly form. With one fierce sweep, you've left me clinging, my fist clenching nothing but material ash. Oh, Shiva, open my eyes, sealed by beholding the plan. My hands wail, they pound futile rage, but all that is left is suffocating ash, a strangle of fear. Run! Shiva has swept through here. Run for your life. Run until you collapse in the horror, stilled by the dissolution, and stand in it, melting like ice in fire. Stand in the loss, in the center of it all, in the calm eye of the hurricane. Release my false grip. Travel through Shiva's eyes, where destruction offers a path that, if taken, shows the soul beyond the pointless grasp, false security, a paragraha. Shiva, destroyer, cut the cords to my grasp of that which is not my soul. Leave only the cinders of what never belonged to me. Force my hand open to lay on my heart. Embrace eternal heartbeat. Let what has been taken blow away in the winds, leaving me standing with palms open on Shiva's purified ground.
This blows me away. I read it earlier, and thank you for reading that for me. One of the things I found is your ability to create these images that just made me feel like I was there, made me
Wow.
feel like I was there, and the emotion, which for me, especially in healing poetry for healing, is to have that emotion come from here and come out onto the page. And so when you just the three words, don't you see my fists clenching, just that to me is a very emotional line. My hands wail, they pound futile rage. You know, you can feel, it's like I can feel the emotion against the wall. So what would you describe as are your other poems that you write similar in style, or how would you say, if it's, I'd say separate from this poem, how would you describe your style, or do you have a style?
I guess I do have a style. Am I consistent with it? I wonder. Um, I do try to make a story. And I mean, I think in my mind, this one has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I don't do it like cognitively, but I think maybe subconsciously I do try to have a punctuation point at the end. I like to have some kind of a resolution at the end, or else something ironic at the end.
For me, the writing is done. I mean, I will, and you have a copy of it, I will go into my poem about, so I was diagnosed with breast cancer in April of 2012. And I'm very thankful that I'm considered a low risk of reoccurrence. And I'm very blessed and thankful for that. But in the back of my mind, there's always this what if. And a lot of people don't see that, or are not aware unless you go through it yourself. And so this poem is called The Word Recurrence. In the back of my mind, the fear lurks. With the smile I wear, resilience shines. Life's routine shouts perseverance. I return to work bravely, a Starbucks coffee, walking in the sun, a joke or two, lunch with caring friends, going to the store, buying apples happily and oatmeal too. The word reoccurrence suddenly stops me in my track, shivering cold, standing in frozen foods. For a second, I tremble. No matter what my smile shows, I am afraid, and that is reality. Some of what I think my poetry has been the last few years is not putting up a facade and for others' benefit, and maybe sometimes, you go to work and go to Starbucks, but in my poetry, I don't want to put up that facade. I just want to ask, so I find it very interesting. You're saying that the going through menopause, suddenly this flow of emotion came, and I found that very powerful because we're talking about a change of life, and with that change of life comes these words, and I found that very powerful, and I'm just wondering if you could explain that a little bit for me, please.
Well, I mean, as you're saying that back to me, I'm sort of putting some stuff together, like, because I don't know about you, but at least for me, when I went through it, and I think a lot of women experience this, is it's kind of a time of angst. Um, your body's getting really hot. You're metamorphosizing.
Yes.
Your hormones are stopping. They're going. And it's a pretty uncomfortable time. And it's a time of reflection, whether you've had children or not.
Mm-hmm.
Things come up for you during that time. You're certainly moving from one phase of your maturity to the next, and it's very visceral. So it was a time of angst.
What would you actually, what would you say to poets, to young, old, to people that might really have never dabbled in, they're so based in, and nothing against, there's wonderful poetry teachers out there, but they're so based in iambic pentameter and the structure that it keeps them, or spelling, that it keeps them from writing. And I'm just curious about your perspective on that, and what you would say to somebody that maybe has never written a poem.
Yeah, and what a great observation that you have on that, because in my opinion, um, poetry is not an academic exercise. I mean, I can understand whenever you get into an art and it evolves, it can be a challenge, and probably a lot of fun to let it evolve in a really academic way and to get into that iambic parameter and all that kind of stuff. But me, I just think it's so powerful to come from another place, and that's from your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say to young poets that when you're listening to rap, when you're listening to music and you're
Yes.
hearing lyrics, this is poetry. And I can guarantee you it probably wasn't formed from the left brain. It was formed from an inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And it was formed from an event or an experience. And to come into your heart and let the words or the impressions flow rather than to think about what's right and how should I better say this. Just get the words out first.
Just maybe kind of beginning to close here is that I think poetry helps community, and poetry helps to bring people together, because they say, okay, well, this image reminds me of something, or this sounds like an emotion of something I've been through. And I think it helps to not, poetry helps to limit isolation, people feeling isolated. And I think sometimes people think of poetry as, okay, you're just sitting there reading a book of poetry, but it's so much more than that. And that's why I'm having this podcast, and I'm so happy that you wanted to be here on this podcast. And you know, I'm going to love to go onto your blog and go on, and so where can people go to read some of your works and contact you?
They can go to my poetry blog, which is iwritemyself.wordpress.com. It's a free blog. You can subscribe or not. If you subscribe, you get an email every time I publish a new poem. And right now I'm doing a series for my dear girlfriend, Lise Gilchrist, who I just lost last weekend. She passed of breast cancer. And so I'm doing a series on that loss and breast cancer right now.
And that is, I'm very sorry for your loss, and I'm very, but I think in writing for her, you are honoring, you are, in a way for me, that is someone living on, because you are, you know, what I'm saying is that it's helping you, but I think it's also honoring her, and I know she would be, I'm sure she would be thankful that you're doing this and that you're writing the poem. All right, well, thank you very much, Maurine. It's been such a pleasure, and I know we will be talking more when I start my poetry jam. I want you to be there, and I'd love you to get up and read one of your poems. It would be, or two poems. It would be, I think it's just going to be a magical experience for everybody. And thank you. And
Thank you.
we will be in touch.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay.
It was really a pleasure.
Maurine Killough, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Sharon Lee, and thank you for being a part of this episode of Art Blender. I hope you enjoyed this and other episodes featuring artists in their own words. What I hope to achieve with this talk show is to highlight the importance of art, which I believe is very much needed in today's world. I want to illustrate the power of art and give artists a platform to share their works. The creation of art can be a healing tool and a vehicle for growth and enlightenment. Art Blender is a labor of love for me, but to continue this series in the future, I cannot do it on my own. I am always looking for your thoughts and suggestions, or you can just drop me a note to say hi. Please email me at the address below. Also, I am always looking for great guests to be on the show. So if you are an artist or know an artist locally, nationally, internationally, please contact our producer and he will get back to you. In closing, I cannot fund Art Blender on my own for the long term and will need your help. So if you would like to make a personal donation or know a business that would like to sponsor an episode, please contact our producer. I am also creating a nonprofit to ensure that the money is used to bring you the most engaging content and ensure the longevity of Art Blender. Art Blender is a place for everyone who believes in the power of art and what it means to call yourself an artist. Thank you for watching today's episode.